In this heated chapter of One Piece, Luffy's grandpa Garp proves that the Yonko are nothing compared to his demonic power. And he is not the only one with the power of darkness on his side. One Piece took the cover of the magazine this week with a bunny theme as Luffy, Nami, and Chopper make mochi together. This is reminiscent of another magazine cover from 2017 where Luffy ran off with some mochi on the back of a giant rabbit. And both are similar to a cover page that came out before I was even born with chapter 22. And these are all based on the traditional Japanese concept of rabbits living on the moon and making mochi there. With all that in mind, I actually think there's a bit of lore significance here. We know that the celestial dragons refer to their unfortunate victims as rabbits. There's also evidence that in ancient times, there was once life on the moon. Inhabitants that tearfully left behind their mechanized automata were later brought back online by Enel. And if we look at Chopper's costume for this latest cover, he seems to be wearing attire that is similar to that of the automata. There's also the fact that the last meal Spacey, Cosmo, Galaxy, and Macro shared with their creator Tsukimi was mochi. The color spread for this chapter features the Straw Hats with their many friends and loved ones as plushies. This is easily one of my favorite spreads of all time. There is just so much to love about it. Luffy is holding his family close, and that includes Whitebeard. There's the inclusion of Gaimon, who would have been a Straw Hat if he'd taken Luffy up on his offer. And all the while, poor Hancock was being dropped like a bad habit. Nami is holding her family, which includes Vivi. The two of them are fighting over a Chopper doll, all the while the real Chopper is inside the machine and being prayed for by Robin. Sanji is holding the poster girls of various arcs while chucking an unwanted buggy doll at Zoro. Zoro has Mihawk, but I honestly would have loved to see Kuina or even Tashigi here too. The cover page for One Piece chapter 1161, titled A Love Ballad in a Hail of Arrows, features Yamato, Kinemon, and Momonosuke paying their respects to a shrine dedicated to Wano's heroes, with each lantern being dedicated to one of them. The largest one represents Odin. There's also Toki, Yasui, Tempura, Umasubi, Ushimaru, Taka, Izo, Pedro, and Doji, among others. We return to God Valley. The many legends have all assembled and turned this nightmarish event into an active war zone. A marine urged the celestial dragons to evacuate. One of them shouted back that there was a prize he really wanted. The marine assured him that they would take responsibility and get it for him. But that didn't appease the world noble in the slightest, as the Marines would be taking responsibility for this entire fiasco regardless. Thanks to the chaos, some of the rabbit hunt victims now had hope that they might be able to escape with their lives. Roger was here in search of Shakky. Rox was looking for his wife Eris and his son Teach, while the only reason Garp showed up was to go head-to-head against Roger. Now, the name Eris is actually the name of the Greek goddess of chaos. It's also a name that was inscribed on Imu's demonic sigil, so it's safe to assume that her fate will be a grim one. Meanwhile, Luffy's father Dragon was running as fast as he could with Shanks and Shamrock, but oddly, he didn't see the marine ships up ahead. Instead, he saw something else. There were more pirates ahead of them, so he needed to reroute. Unfortunately, he hadn't noticed the figure that was tailing him. One of God's knights caught sight of the marine while using a Den Den Mushi. She noted the fact that the Navy officer was holding a small bundle. He didn't hesitate to pierce through his shoulder with a destructive beam attack. So she clearly has some sort of devil fruit power. As smoke billowed out from her mouth, she confirmed the success of her hunt. Dragon and his charges hit the ground with a thud. The person on the other end of the call was very grateful since Garling would have had their head over this. This is Saint Mafi of the Satchels family, which is another celestial house added to the list. She never thought that a guy like Garling could ever be a father. It was almost as strange as the fact that a marine had taken his child. So clearly she had no idea that there were actually two babies here. And unlike when he was in the arms of Dragon, Shamrock actually began to cry when she held him. And man, upon closer inspection, Saint Mafi's design is even busier than we initially thought. The top of her head is shaped like a volcano. She's wearing a floral print dress below an open-chested, frilly-ended blouse with 3 belts. She has horns, lipstick, shades, 4 bangles, painted nails, a cigar, fangs, shades, 2-toned hair, a feathered overcoat, and is huge. Last time, we pointed out the potential link between this character and Dellinger of the Don Quixote Pirates. And now, we can see that there are definitely some similarities between her outfit and Doflamingo's. Not to mention the fact that her name seems to be based on the word mafia. An injured dragon desperately reached out. He was more pained by his failure to atone by saving the babies than he was by his wound. With a crying Shamrock in hand, Mafi prepared to end the Marine with her sword. Dragon gritted his teeth and accepted his fate. He supposed that this is what he deserved for helping to set up this genocidal game in the first place. And if Dragon can feel this way about the reluctant part he played in all this, then I don't think there's any excuse that can justify Garp's actions. But Saint Mafi was suddenly bisected along with several trees in an instant, as the voice of an angry pirate cut through just as loudly. The knight was beyond stunned and broke out into a cold sweat. And here we can also see that she wears high heels. So our suspicion that Dellinger inherited her footwear just gained a bit more credibility. Whitebeard was the one responsible. He told Big Mom repeatedly that he was just aiming at the enemy. There seemed to be a ton of other pirate crews on the island. Lin insisted that he was lying since she totally could have died. She wondered if he was picking a fight with her. All the while, Dragon was overwhelmed by how big the 2 pirates were. An angry Shakky was behind them and cursed Newgate for nearly killing him too. And on account of what happened to Mafi, their concerns were totally warranted. At the same time, Kaido was angry at Big Mom for not keeping to her word. He really wants one of those rare devil fruits. Behind them, a whole crowd of pirates were eager to claim their heads and the fame that would earn them. Shakky wondered if the weaklings were after Shakky too. The 4 legendary pirates annihilated the small army of competition with minimal effort. The fodder was tossed aside. And you know, a part of me wants to respect them for the attempt and the fact that they dared to challenge the Celestial Dragons at all. But then I remembered that they're probably just a bunch of Shakky simps. Mafi was flabbergasted by the madness that was ensuing on the island, but was still holding on to a distraught Shamrock. Dragon knew that this was his best chance to slip away, but he was still thinking about his failure to save the babies. Then his eyes went wide. An unconscious Shanks was still on the ground and hadn't been taken. Our boy got hit with the Baby Goku special. Garp noticed the destruction the famous pirates are causing and knew that he'd reeled in some big fish. Raising a hockey-infused fist, the Marine was certain that he had just hit the jackpot. He was now hunting some of the most infamous pirates in history all at once, as if they were just a bunch of sea kings. Whitebeard and Big Mom knew that they needed to run on sight. They claimed that a fight with the Marine would take way too long, and that's even if they all jumped him. A 21-year-old Kaido couldn't believe that he and his seniors wouldn't be fighting back in the slightest. Lin shouted at the youngster to shut his mouth. She called out to Zeus and Prometheus, who awaited her orders. And out of everyone, this is most embarrassing for Whitebeard. This man was respected for having a back that didn't have a single scar of retreat at the end of his life. But it turns out that he was just a little too fast for Garp to catch him. I mean, just look at how disproportionate Garp's legs are compared to Whitebeard's. Dragon couldn't believe that his dad was here too. Big Mom made her move. Heavenly Fire Blitz! An enhanced torrent of flames and lightning totally enveloped her target and charred the earth. The fallout from this attack was even larger than the previous result of the 4 legends working in concert. Eva and Kuma were stunned by the distant sight, but they realized that this was their chance to run, which ended up giving them the opportunity to grab the rare devil fruits. But good lord, Garp emerged with a smile on his face like a hockey-coated demon. He let Lin know that her attack wasn't even hot enough to cook a prime rib. Unholy aura! Mind you, Prometheus and Zeus are the partial manifestations of Lin's soul. At this point, Big Mom was sweating bullets and swearing more than a sailor. Garp is really in a different league. Meanwhile, Mafi fled the scene long ago and was now at a safe distance. She let her compatriot know that the kidnapper was probably dead. Even so, she figured that securing Garling's kid would be good enough. The person on the line said they owed her their life, and urged the knight to hurry back before Garling notices. This turned out to be one of the biggest blunders in history. Obviously, Garling would notice a missing twin baby, and the future world's worst criminal managed to escape, so heads are bound to roll. At the same time, an injured dragon was making off with baby Shanks. He apologized for failing to save Shamrock, but swore to at least save one of them. Elsewhere, the yet-to-be-named knightly marksman mocked the rabbits for believing they had any chance at escaping. The sadistic Celestial gunned them all down with insane accuracy. And this certainly wasn't your typical musket fire, so we might be looking at another Devil Fruit user here. Over in the town where Kuma and Eva would eventually find the Devil Fruits, a Marine was reporting in. He explained that between the Roger pirates coming from the northwest and the Rocks pirates coming in from the southeast, they were stuck between a rock and a hard place. Roger hit their location personally in search of Shakky. The Marines were ordered to fight to the last man since they hadn't been able to leave with the treasure just yet. Rare Devil Fruits and their very lives were on the line. But Rocks' crew was closing in on them from the other side. Shakky and Kyo were fighting over who would have the honor of saving Shakky first, with the rest of the crew in tow. And here we can see that John was actually the previous wielder of Kid's Devil Fruit, on account of the big robotic arm, which makes sense since they both bear the title of Captain beyond the typical designation. Saint Summers was the knight on the scene. He urged the Marines to hurry up and stop the pirates, as if they had any real choice here. He assumed that they had already moved Shakky at the very least, but reluctantly, they admitted to a complication in that department. Summers entered the building where Shakky was being detained. Marines were laid out on the ground, while two more were keeping their distance and surprised to see the Celestial enter. Summers couldn't believe that a woman in chains was able to take down so many Marines by her lonesome. Shakky could tell that the pirates nearby were giving her captors plenty of trouble outside. Summers wasn't fond of her attitude. He smacked her across the face while claiming that nothing was less attractive than a woman who knows her worth. In response, Shakuyaku swiveled her body. Then she struck the knight's shoulder with a bone-shattering kick. But the regenerative degenerate grabbed her leg despite the pain. The Kuja's eyes widened in sudden disbelief and concern. Saint Summers hefted his thorn-covered club. Then he struck her. Shakky fell over in agony. Looming over her, Summers mentioned the fact that all the pirates had come to save the beautiful woman. Her popularity was too troublesome for his liking, and it even served to ruin their little game. With a wicked smile, he assumed that if she managed to escape, Garling would just claim her as his wife in the end. Since there wasn't anything in it for anyone else, he thought that it might be more fun to just kill her. He brought up how the pirates had all come to save her. Summers longed to see the looks on their faces after surviving hell, only to see the twisted corpse of the woman they all yearned for. So, as if we needed any more proof, this guy is really messed up. I desperately need Sanji to be the one to beat this guy down. Aside from the whole woman beater angle, there's also the fact that Summers enjoys inflicting pain on others, and Sanji's pain tolerance is ridiculous at this point. Meanwhile, Roger let out a battle cry. He crossed swords with Whitebeard. And despite being cool, this scene is certainly more tame than their later clash, where their blades were more like repelling magnets. They're also not using blackened blades here. But the result of this clash was more than enough to knock back tons of pirates and Marines alike. Shakky cried out his promise to save Shakky. His rival and plenty of other pirates swore that they would be the ones to do it. Upset about being busy with Whitebeard, Roger reluctantly left Shakky up to his friend. The first mate leapt without hesitation. Shakky's expression was overtaken by resentful dread. Summers toyed with her by pointing out how close the pirates had come to saving her. The Marines in the room urged the knight to reconsider since Garling would never forgive such a thing. He told them to shut their mouths. If they don't say anything, the situation would only be seen as an unfortunate accident. Summers was overjoyed by the hopeless expression Shakky was making. He let her know that this wasn't some fairy tale where she would have a happy ending, because he would just cut down any would-be hero with ease. He laughed in the face of her suffering. Lifting his weapon, he promised to kill her in 5 slashes. He hoped that she would savor the pain of each blow, as her wishful thinking leaks out with her blood. As all Shakky could do was close her eyes and brace for the end. But that's when Summers sensed something that ended his fun. A Dark King emerged with a gleaming blade and promised to send him to the darkest corners of hell for this. The fraudulent knight paled. Red Spider Lily! Rayleigh sent the madman through a wall! And interestingly, when Oda was asked what flower represents each of the worst generation, he likened Blackbeard to a red spider lily. That said, he also warned fans that he doesn't know that much about flowers, so we shouldn't look too deeply at his choices here. Rayleigh called out to Shakky. Her eyes widened in disbelief. She sat up and was shaking as he apologized for taking so long. We're then reminded of her message that he should come and claim her as his woman. The first mate let Shakuyaku know that he's finally here for her with an outstretched hand. An explosion rang out in the town, and this is when Kuma and Eva enter the scene. Shakky was crying. She rushed into his arms and yelled that he's late. Overwhelmed by emotions and crying now too, he let her know how sorry he is for letting things come to this in the first place. Shakky sobbed about how scared she was. Rayleigh began to promise that he would never let her go again, as his brothers-in-arms mourned their chances and told him to save the romance for later. So I guess it didn't take that long for Roger to handle Whitebeard. But now that they had Shakky, Roger told his men to grab the treasure and hightail it off the island. Oh man, God Valley continues to be epic. I kinda wish that Shakky had a bit more character depth, but to be fair, this flashback arc has so many different focuses that would probably be a tall order. Garp also continues to be the most polarizing character in this series, but I can't wait to see Luffy become as strong as his grandpa was in his prime. Now, since the devil fruits seem to be gathered in this location, and we're already at the point where Big Mom snatches Kaido's fruit, the chances of Dragon getting his own here may seem like they've dwindled. But we know that Shanks ultimately ends up with the Roger Pirates, and was inside of a treasure chest. So the fruit that Roger's crew would have escaped with is probably the one that Dragon ends up eating. Putting the baby inside may have been his only chance of surviving. And while Rayleigh and Shakky had their heartfelt reunion, I don't imagine Rox and his wife will be so fortunate. While everyone else is playing games, he's fighting for his family. So from here on out, any crash out is beyond warranted. Be sure to leave us your thoughts and predictions in the comments. As always, I'm Slice of Otaku. Thank you all so much for watching and have an awesome day. I love you.